The next speaker is Ettiene Retief. I just want to. Ettiene Retief is going to talk to us on the VAT on suppliers, non-suppliers, agency and cross-charging. Ettiene is a professional accountant of South Africa, professional tax supervisor, and he works for FTR Tax and Corporate Administration. So without much further ado, he's also well known in the tax field. I hand over to Ettiene.
Almost afternoon. How are you doing? Guys, ready? Talk about VAT. Whenever we say VAT, people think it's simple. It doesn't come with much complexity. But for such simple legislation, it comes enthralled with the greatest amount of risk, the most efficient tax to collect, and in fact is enthralled with a number of complexities. One of those I want to talk about is the principle of supply, because I've come across, and I must say in the last probably 2 or so years, this question, I don't think there's a single week that has gone by where I've not been asked the same question of, what do I do when I charge this on? So not just for my clients, but also in questions to the professional body. We've had it in a number of things. I've even had disputes with SARS on that very principle. So I thought, let me decide, or let me help you disseminate the distinction between an on-supply, true on-supply, and the principle of agency. And when we make that distinction, it will start becoming clearer when we on-charge or when we should be on-charging. Because one thing is for certain is that whenever we deal with VAT, what's the first thing that comes to mind? When someone says, I'm going to charge you VAT, or I have to claim VAT, the first thing that comes to mind is a tax invoice. So often when we deal with the on-charges or any of these, also the issue of the tax invoice and the issues of how I treat the tax and whether I'm entitled to my input has become quite a relevant question to ask. And that's why it's important to understand what the nature of the transaction is. And in doing so, we also need to understand whether or not there really is a supply in which I'm actually charging on. So first we have to distinguish the difference between an agency and the principle of on-supply. Because remember, when I'm on-supplying, I'm effectively taking a supply, because remember in claiming input VAT, it says my entitlement to claiming input tax is because I have used, consumed, or on-supplied for making taxable supplies. So effectively, I've been provided this, and I'm providing an on. Now, at the same sense, is if we look at the definition of enterprise and the ongoing activity, it tells us that it's between one party and another for consideration that we're doing this, but it also then further goes and tells us that there's no need for a profit. In fact, the profit motive is deliberately ignored there by saying is that for a profit or not. So whether you add a margin or not is not relevant. In fact, there's only one section in the entire VAT Act that actually requires for you to have a margin or a markup in an on-charge in order to claim your input. And that relates to motor cars. That is in typical scenario of where I am renting or I'm a renter of vehicles. It requires that I not only when I take the cost, I have to take all the costs and recover it. There has to be a reasonable markup as well to it when I'm supplying it in order to qualify that motor car, and that funny definition we have of motor cars, as a commercial transaction. But it was really just there to kind of catch the motor car, the definition of motor car, and the avoidance that we could possibly have by the manipulation of what that definition would mean if I could then charge for it or have the rental kind of scheme. Now, and that probably is a whole day session on its own. What is a motor car and what is entertainment? Because we've recently seen even court cases on those, further expanding those definitions. But when we deal with the supply, there's a few questions you need to ask. And I've tried to simplify it with a few basic questions. The first is, who is the principal and where does the risk and reward lie? Because remember, when I'm talking about agency, one of the most important things of agency is that when I'm the agent, I'm not really assuming risk. I'm doing a job. I'm effectively acting on behalf of the principal. So I can step out of it.